Is Joel Embiid a Hall of Famer? Where does the big man rank in the centers all time with the 76ers? We'll talk about that and more next on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, I'm Keith Pompey, and this is my right-hand man, John Mitchell. We are the co-hosts of Locked On 76ers. We got a lot to talk to y'all about today. Season's about to come up. We've got one more month left, but it's a lot of off-season discussions, and this one is. And the reason why I want to bring it up, because there's a lot of polls going out now of current players who are Hall of Famers. So with that, I saw one that had Joel Embiid is 66%. They're saying he's a Hall of Famer, like a 66% chance of making a Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little higher than that. I do. I think it's a little bit higher than that. So I want to ask Mitch about that and see how he feels about it, and then I'll comment. And then after that, we want to rank the best centers in franchise history. Where does Joel Embiid rank with the best centers in 76ers history? And then lastly, we got to talk about Kelly Oubre, who could have a big role for the Sixers this season.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mitch, is Joel Embiid a Hall of Famer, and why?
No, Keith, is the criteria if he would have stopped playing right now, or what we're projecting? Right.
I mean, at this point, I guess it's hard to say project. I mean, let's say now, like because like the thing is, I mean, how many? Joel's 30 now, so you know what I mean, like.
Realistically,
what he's done right now, do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's absolutely a Hall of Fame talent. There's no doubt about it. But I'm skirting the question with that response. I'm going to put Joel in the Hall of Fame. I mean, just because if you just look at the numbers, all right, here's a guy who's averaged 27.9 points per game, and 11.2 rebounds per game, and even 3.6 assists, close to 4 assists per game. He's been a Hall of Famer. If you look at the last few years, even though he's had abbreviated seasons, and that's going to be the thing against him. I'm getting ready to bring up somebody who I always bring this person up when I talk about the Hall of Fame in any sport. All right, if you look at Joel, averaged 34.7 last year in 39 games. Played 66 games the year before, 33.1, 68, 30.6, 28.5 in the year before that. Even though he's played these abbreviated seasons, I mean, he's got seasons where he had 31 games, 39 games played, 51. He's had those abbreviated seasons, but I am going to apply what I call the Gale Sayers rule. Great Chicago Bears running back from the 60s. Sayers, played an abbreviated career, but was so fantastic during that stretch of games that he wound up in the Hall of Fame. And I'll apply the same thing. I'll give Joel Embiid, the same pass. I mean, Joel. I mean, how long have you and I been covering pro basketball? 30 years combined, somewhere in that range, maybe even more than that. So he's a Hall of Fame player. I think if he would have stopped playing right now, he would get into the Hall of Fame. There will be some people who will make the argument, and again, it all comes down to voters who will make the argument that he didn't play enough and he didn't win enough. But if you're just watching the talent level, it's an extraordinary skill set that the guy has. And I think he gets in on having, arguably the most all-around skill of any big man we've ever seen, Keith. So I'm going to put him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. He's a Hall of Famer. Now, again, there are some people that's going to argue and say, he's the only MVP who failed to get out of the second round.
Right.
And I get all that. But the one thing that stands out to me is that, let's go not this past season, but the year before. Embiid averaged 33.1 points to become the first player to win consecutive scoring titles since James Harden won 3 straight with the Rockets from the 2017-18 season to 2020-21, right? Now, the last center to win consecutive scoring titles was Hall of Famer Bob McAdoo. He won 3 straight with the Buffalo Braves from 1973-74 to 75-76. Now, had Embiid would have played in the like 70% of the games, whatever it is, he would have won his 3rd straight scoring title.
Yeah,
he would have been the first center since McAdoo to do that. Right? So when you look at the things that Embiid has been able to accomplish when he does play, they're all like certain things that we haven't seen. Well, I shouldn't say that we've seen before, but all the other people who did it made it to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
You even go down to Joel Embiid's Performer of the Month, all these other things. We're talking about he's in the class statistically with Wilt Chamberlain, Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
So, surpassing Dr. J on things.
Yeah.
So when you look at all these guys, they are all Hall of Famers. And then you have to say, look at Yao Ming. Yao Ming was a dominant big man,
right?
But his career was marred by injuries as well.
Right. That's a good point.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it's no question that Joel Embiid is a Hall of Famer. In this era right now, even with bad wheels or bad feet, bad knees, whatever you want to say, this guy is arguably the best player in the league, the best player in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
So, he's a Hall of Famer.
And you can make the case last year in the last 2 seasons that he's been the best player in the world. You can legitimately make that case. And I think that it's kind of hard to keep a guy like that out of the Hall of Fame. Again, he's had the abbreviated seasons and whatnot, but he's such a talent that you have to get him in there. So, and we can talk about this a little bit more on the other side. But right now, I want to talk to you about, the game time experience. This is time of year where you can get this. You can go to basketball games. You'll be able to go to football games pretty soon. You got the music, theater. You can do all those things through Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. In this Gametime Picks, curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc., all in pricing. You have seat views. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. It's the lowest prices guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you not 100% back, but 110% of the difference. And also remember this, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. We want to thank you for making Locked On Sixers your first listen of the day. And for your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There's no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day.
Do it today, people. Definitely do it today. But here's the thing. So we both agree that he is a Hall of Fame, right? But with that being said, there's been some Hall of Fame centers that played for the 76ers.
Yeah.
You know, guys who won MVP, multiple MVPs. Where does Joel Embiid rank in your eyes with the centers of the NBA?
Or even the Sixers roster for right now.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. The Sixers roster.
Yeah,
roster.
Yeah, if you scan down Sixers history, I think number one, I mean, Will Chamberlain is like an automatic. You know, and I know a lot of younger listeners and viewers are always like, oh, he was playing in a league where everybody was 6'5", 6'5", 6'6" centers. And I always tell people, I say, listen, he entered the league like a decade before Kareem Abdul-Jabbar entered, so and played against Kareem in his waning days. So so he wasn't the only 7-footer in the league. You had guys like Artis Gilmore, he was in the ABA, Nate Thurman, and there were all kinds of 7-footers playing in the NBA years back in those days. So I will go with Will Chamberlain number one, Darryl Dawkins number two. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go with I'll shout out to Chocolate Thunder, may he rest in peace. But I'm gonna go with Moses. Yeah, I gotta go with Moses at number two. And I'll go with Joel for sure at three. And obviously the things that separate those two that put him at the third tier, I would say it was definitely championships. And statistics. Yeah. I mean, with Will's statistics kind of put everybody a tier below him.
Yeah. The crazy part is, and I agree with, the crazy part with Wilt is, his averages as a Sixer, talking about average per games, he played for the Sixers for 4 seasons. He averaged 21.5 points, 18.6 rebounds, right? He shot 58.3% from the field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at it, though, that, it was one of those things. He had other teammates as well. Now, one year he did lead the league, and as a Sixer, he led the NBA in assists. Now, get this right. Now, I'm going to get this right. He played for the Sixers for 4 seasons. His final 3 seasons, he led the NBA in assists.
That's crazy.
And then when he was traded to the 1 year, his first full year here, or his second year here, he led the league in points at 33.5 points and assists at 24.6. Now, here's the thing. He was the MVP in those 3 seasons. Yeah. Wilt Chamberlain was MVP. Now, he was traded in the middle of the season that first year, but that first year he got him to the NBA Finals. He did everything, all that, right? So when you look at it statistically, you'll say that Joel Embiid point scoring, might have had a better point scoring career. Now, here's the thing. I agree with you about Moses and Wilt being number one, Moses being number two. But then there's that guy Dolph Shades, and I keep going back, not really going back and forth with him and Embiid, but I keep coming up with the Dolph Shades thing. And I know there's a lot of people like, who? We talk about when Wilt played, it was a long time ago and no one knew what was out there, right? But the thing about Dolph Shades, he was a heck of a player. Like, he was the guy who, like during his era, he was the man. Like
Right.
there was no better player around. Like he was the best guy in the league, right? Um, he was a 12-time All-Star, a 12-time All-NBA. He was a member of the NBA 75th anniversary team. He was a member of the Sixers Syracuse Nationals 1955 NBA championship team,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you look at it, you say to yourself, like, where does this guy fit in? But as good as he is, I have to say that Joel is behind him. I mean, ahead of him.
Ahead of him. Yeah.
Ahead of him. And there's no disrespect to what he did. It's just that when I look at Joel Embiid and the things that he's able to do physically for his size and how he's like a face of the league, and I know that Dolph was back then, I have to go with Joel over him. I have to. Like, this guy was 6'8", 220 pounds. Whereas Joel is 7'2", 3. Like they say 206, 280, but he's 3. So I have to go with Joel as number 3, and this guy, Dolph Shades, number 4.
Yeah, and as good as Dolph Shades was, and he was a very good player. He I'm looking at his numbers. His best scoring output was probably 60, 61, 23.6 points per game. No, I take it back. 58, 24.9 was his best year. 58, and that was in the 57, 58 season. One thing about Shades, though, he didn't shoot the ball very well from the floor. He's got a lot of 38.3%, 36.6. So he wasn't a very good shooter. It was a decent rebounder. He in 1.1 year, 16.4 boards. But I'm going to have, and he did have longevity. Like a lot of guys, he kind of petered out later on in his career. But I'm going to have to go with Joel. Yeah, I go with Joel ahead of him. So I'm willing to say, and that kind of, if you look at their history, the 76ers have had great centers between Wilt, Moses, Joel, Dolph Shades, and we can talk about that. And we'll talk about Kelly Oubre a little bit after the break. Right now, I want to talk about FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon game, out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel.
Do it today, people. Definitely do it today. So here's the deal. So, we talk about other guys. I mean, we talked about Maxey, Tyrese Maxey. We talked about Paul George and Joel Embiid being the big trio. We talked about, the new additions that they have, the new players. We talked about the point guards. A guy that we mentioned a little bit, but just briefly, was Kelly Oubre. And, I believe that Kelly Oubre can have a major role for the 76ers this season. You do as well.
I do.
When you look at a guy like Kelly, he's a 2-3, but he also provides length, right? And the important thing about being a 2-3 is that and also in today's NBA, he can also play some small ball power forward, right? If they want to go that way.
Yeah.
But the thing is, at 6'7", when you look at it and you have a guy like Tyrese Maxey, who's a little bit of a smaller guard at 6'2", and then you have Caleb Martin, you have all these other guys, Kyle Lowry, he can come in there and use his wingspan and use his length to be disruptive. And the one thing that I liked about him that we learned last year is that he's mastered playing off of elite players, right? He mastered playing off of Joel Embiid, playing off of Maxey. There was times when, he looked more like the third scorer on the team than Tobias Harris. So, he's a guy that I feel like is going to be vital to what they're going to do this season.
Yeah, and I think the addition of Paul George gives Nick Nurse the ability and the opportunities to explore more ways to use him. Lots of times when Kelly came in, he was getting buckets. He was transitioning. I think now, because the team is more versatile, the roster's more versatile, you're going to, and if you look at that deficiency, that height deficiency, they've got like 5 guards: McCain, Tyrese, Reggie Jackson, Lowry, and there may be one more. The name evades me right now, but they're going to need him to play out on the perimeter at times and defend guys somebody who's heating up on.
You're talking about Jared McCann.
The rookie.
Yeah,
so they're going. Thanks, Chris. So they're going to need somebody who can give them that flexibility, who can give them that length. And I think you're going to see him. I think you'll see him get more steals this year. I think you'll see him be more opportunistic on defense, and I think that he'll play smart. I think he had an interesting year for the 76ers last year with those instances that by now we've all put them in the rearview mirror as we focus at 24 and 25. And so I think he will bring a versatility and do more things. You probably won't see him score as much because you're looking at that trio of Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George. They have combined for about 82, 83 points last year. So they'll need him to do more things, and one of them is to be more versatile as a player.
Yeah, and I think he will be. I mean, I think his second year here, getting more into the system. And we think about this though. Last year he played. He had some cracked ribs, right? Some fractured ribs.
Yeah.
He missed some time with that. He had a lot of stuff. So I think he'll be healthy. He also came in kind of late too. Like he didn't really do any of those, off-season conditioning with the team or anything like that. Last season, he just came in and he played well. So I feel like him being more familiar with the team and everything. I mean, I remember seeing something of him in LA or somewhere working out with Paul George.
Okay.
So, and then I know the Sixers, have been having these little mini camps, so to speak, in LA. So a lot of these guys are getting together. So I feel like all this is going to benefit Kelly. I do. Yeah. I feel like he's going to come out and have a good season. Now, am I saying he's going to be an all-star or anything like that? No. But at the same time, he's not expected to. But what I think is we'll see him, and within his role, he'll have a really solid year and things like that. So I think he'll do well. I think he'll do well.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I think his points may be down, but you're right. I think he'll be able to make contributions in other areas, for sure.
Yeah. So, thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. Now go check out Locked On NBA podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description so you don't have to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Do it today, people. Definitely do it today. And we want to make sure you guys have a blessed day. Make this a blessed week. And we'll chat with you guys tomorrow.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.